Have you ever wondered how someone can legally be entitled to one of the highest royal titles in Britain, yet spend their entire life without using it? That's exactly what makes Lady Louise Windsor such a fascinating figure. Since birth, the law has recognized a right that most people don't even realize exists, but instead of embracing it, Lady Louise Windsor has quietly lived under a different identity. Now, as the monarchy faces one of its most demanding periods in decades, many royal watchers are beginning to ask whether that long unused title could finally become relevant. But before we get there, the real story isn't about a title at all. It's about the remarkable path Lady Louise Windsor has chosen while staying almost completely out of the spotlight. To understand why this discussion exists, we have to travel back more than a century. During the First World War, European monarchies were collapsing one after another. Revolutions and political instability threatened centuries-old royal houses. Watching these dramatic events unfold, King George V realized that the British monarchy also needed to adapt if it wanted to survive. As a result, in 1917, King George V introduced a set of constitutional rules known as the Letters Patent. These rules determined exactly who could automatically carry the titles of Prince, Princess, and His or Her Royal Highness. The system was simple, but very traditional. Children of the reigning monarch qualified automatically. Grandchildren through the monarch's sons also qualified. Grandchildren through daughters, however, did not. Although many people have criticized this rule over the years for treating male and female family lines differently, it has largely remained unchanged. This historical decision is the reason today's story even exists. When Lady Louise Windsor entered the world in November 2003, everything was already decided by law. The father of Lady Louise Windsor, Prince Edward, is one of Queen Elizabeth II's sons. Because of that single family connection, Lady Louise Windsor automatically became entitled to the rank of prince and the HRH style from the very first day of life. No ceremony was required, no official announcement was necessary, nobody needed to approve it. Legally, the entitlement already existed. So naturally, one question follows. If the law recognizes Lady Louise Windsor as a princess, why has almost nobody ever called her one? The answer has very little to do with law and almost everything to do with family choice. When Prince Edward married Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh in 1999, Buckingham Palace announced something unusual. Instead of allowing their future children to use prince or princess, those children would instead be styled like the children of an earl. That meant titles such as Lady and Viscount would be used instead. At first glance, many people assumed this meant the legal royal titles had been removed, but they hadn't. The announcement only described how the children would be addressed publicly. It never canceled the rights granted under the 1917 Letters Patent. In other words, the legal entitlement remained quietly in place. The titles simply weren't being used. Timing also played a significant role. Only a short time earlier, the death of Princess Diana had profoundly changed public attitudes toward the royal family. Discussions surrounding royal titles had become emotionally charged, especially after the controversy over HRH styles during the final years of Princess Diana's life. Against that backdrop, Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, believed their future children might enjoy happier, more private lives without growing up under the constant attention that often follows royal titles. It was an unconventional decision, but it proved to be one that shaped Lady Louise Windsor's entire upbringing. Years later, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, publicly explained that neither Lady Louise Windsor nor James, Earl of Wessex, had actually lost their HRH status. Instead, the family had simply chosen not to use it. More importantly, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, revealed that once Lady Louise Windsor became an adult, the decision would belong entirely to her. She could continue life exactly as she had, or she could begin using the title whenever she believed the time was right. That option has remained available ever since, yet adulthood arrived and nothing changed. Many observers expected a dramatic announcement. Instead, there was silence. No press conference, no new styling, no public celebration. Lady Louise Windsor simply carried on living as before. To understand why, it helps to look beyond royal protocol and examine how Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, chose to raise their family. Unlike many members of the royal family, Lady Louise Windsor experienced a surprisingly ordinary childhood. Although the family lived on royal property, daily life was intentionally kept as normal as possible. School wasn't surrounded by extraordinary attention, activities were shared with other children. Instead of living entirely inside royal traditions, Lady Louise Windsor participated in organizations similar to Girl Scouts, developed hobbies, and later even accepted a summer job at a garden center. That small detail became surprisingly symbolic. Most people imagine royal grandchildren spending every summer inside palaces or attending endless ceremonial events. Instead, Lady Louise Windsor worked alongside ordinary employees, serving customers like thousands of teenagers across Britain. That experience reflected exactly what Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, wanted. Rather than expecting royal life to provide every opportunity, they wanted their children to understand responsibility, independence, and work. During one interview, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, openly admitted that both children would most likely need careers of their own in adulthood. That statement surprised many royal followers because it acknowledged something increasingly obvious. Not every royal can spend an entire lifetime carrying out official engagements. The institution itself has changed. Comparisons with other members of the family make this difference even clearer. Unlike Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenia, who were widely recognized as princesses from childhood, Lady Louise Windsor grew up with many of the privileges people normally associate with royal status. The formal titles stayed unused. Public recognition remained limited. Media attention was dramatically lower. Ironically, many commentators believe that quieter upbringing became one of Lady Louise Windsor's greatest strengths. People who have met her frequently describe her using remarkably similar words: confident, respectful, grounded, comfortable speaking with ordinary people. None of those qualities developed because of a title, they developed because of experience. Even at a young age, Lady Louise Windsor occasionally appeared during important family occasions. One memorable appearance came at the wedding of Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, where many viewers noticed how composed and mature she appeared despite her young age. Years later, another emotional moment drew worldwide attention. During ceremonies honoring Queen Elizabeth II, Lady Louise Windsor stood quietly beside other young members of the family. There were no dramatic gestures, no attempt to attract attention, just calm dignity throughout the ceremony. Many observers praised that quiet professionalism. Relationships within the family also shaped her interests. Among the strongest was the close bond shared with Prince Philip. Together, they developed a passion for carriage driving, an equestrian sport requiring patience, technical skill, and concentration. Following Prince Philip's passing, Lady Louise Windsor inherited equipment connected with that lifelong hobby and continued competing in events herself. Rather than treating it as a ceremonial tradition, she approached it as a genuine competitive discipline. Success soon followed through impressive performances at respected competitions. That dedication reflected an important pattern emerging throughout her life. Instead of relying on inherited status, Lady Louise Windsor consistently focused on developing practical abilities. The same pattern later appeared in education. When discussing possible career ambitions, interests reportedly included areas such as law, diplomacy, and military service. Notice what wasn't at the top of that list: royal duties, titles, ceremonial appearances. Everything suggested that Lady Louise Windsor viewed herself first as someone preparing for a meaningful career, rather than someone waiting for royal responsibilities to arrive automatically. Ironically, while Lady Louise Windsor was building an independent life, the circumstances inside the monarchy itself were beginning to change dramatically. And those changes would eventually make people wonder whether someone raised outside the spotlight might soon become one of the institution's most valuable assets. While Lady Louise Windsor was quietly building an independent life, the royal family itself was entering one of the most demanding periods in modern history. A plan that once sounded practical was suddenly beginning to show its weaknesses. For years, King Charles III had spoken about creating a smaller, more efficient monarchy. The idea was simple: reduce the number of working royals, lower costs, and focus public attention on a smaller group of senior family members. On paper, the strategy appeared sensible. In reality, however, it created an unexpected challenge. The number of people available to carry out royal duties became increasingly limited. Today, only a handful of senior royals regularly represent the crown at public engagements. At the center of that group are King Charles III and Queen Camilla, who continue performing official responsibilities despite growing pressures. Alongside them are Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, whose roles have expanded considerably over recent years. Supporting them are Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, whose steady commitment has earned widespread respect from royal observers. Then there is Princess Anne, long regarded as one of the hardest working members of the royal family. Decades of public service have made her an example of dedication, but time affects everyone. Even the most committed royal cannot maintain such an intense schedule forever. Meanwhile, several other senior members of the family have reached an age where reducing public engagements has become inevitable. As a result, the monarchy has found itself asking fewer people to carry more responsibility than ever before. The situation became even more complicated as major events unfolded inside the family. Health concerns surrounding King Charles III forced adjustments to official schedules and raised understandable questions about the future pace of royal engagements. Around the same time, Catherine, Princess of Wales, also stepped back from public duties while receiving medical treatment, leaving another noticeable gap within the working team. Suddenly, the streamlined monarchy no longer looked simply efficient. To many observers, it looked overstretched. There were charities waiting for royal patrons, organizations hoping for official visits, communities expecting long-standing traditions to continue. Yet the number of available working royals remained surprisingly small. The absence of several well-known figures also changed the landscape. Following controversy, Prince Andrew no longer carried out official public duties. Meanwhile, Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, had stepped away from working royal life altogether, choosing an entirely different path overseas. Although younger royals like Prince George of Wales, Princess Charlotte of Wales, and Prince Louis of Wales represent the future of the monarchy, they are still children whose education naturally comes before public service. That leaves a significant gap between today's senior royals and tomorrow's generation. It is exactly within that gap that many commentators began mentioning Lady Louise Windsor. Unlike many discussions surrounding the royal family, this wasn't driven by controversy or sensational headlines. Instead, it came from practicality. Who could realistically help support the institution over the coming decades? Unlike many public figures, Lady Louise Windsor carried no major scandals. She rarely sought media attention, she avoided unnecessary publicity, and despite remaining largely outside the spotlight, she consistently earned praise whenever she appeared at official events. Royal commentators increasingly described Lady Louise Windsor as someone dependable, disciplined, and quietly committed. Those qualities may not generate dramatic headlines, but they are precisely the characteristics valued inside the monarchy. Several experts even suggested that when Prince William eventually becomes king, reliable family members like Lady Louise Windsor could become incredibly important. A future monarch cannot personally attend thousands of engagements every year. Support is essential. That support must come from people the public trusts. Interestingly, the family of Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, has developed a reputation for exactly that kind of reliability. Unlike other branches of the royal family that frequently dominate newspaper headlines, they have generally become known for consistency rather than controversy. Many royal followers now describe them as one of the monarchy's quiet strengths. And naturally, attention turns toward the next generation. Would Lady Louise Windsor eventually accept a larger role? Nobody knew. But while commentators debated titles and future responsibilities, Lady Louise Windsor was concentrating on something entirely different: military training. For many people, that came as a surprise. Rather than choosing a glamorous public lifestyle, Lady Louise Windsor joined the University Officer Training Corps while studying at university. This wasn't simply a ceremonial activity. Training involved leadership exercises, physical challenges, navigation, teamwork, and military discipline. Participants learn to perform under pressure while developing skills that extend far beyond the classroom. Photographs from training exercises showed Lady Louise Windsor wearing camouflage rather than formal royal clothing. Instead of attending glamorous receptions, she spent time learning practical military techniques alongside fellow students. Observers who witnessed these activities noted something striking. There was no indication that Lady Louise Windsor expected special treatment because of her family background. She trained like everyone else. She followed instructions. She worked within the team. During an important remembrance parade, Lady Louise Windsor marched alongside fellow cadets with complete professionalism. Witnesses described her concentration throughout the ceremony, noting that she remained fully focused on her responsibilities rather than the attention surrounding her. That quiet discipline attracted considerable admiration. Reports later suggested that Lady Louise Windsor genuinely enjoyed military life and viewed service as more than simply another royal tradition. If those reports prove accurate, the future could become historically significant. Should Lady Louise Windsor pursue a professional military career after university, she would follow a path that few women within the modern royal family have taken. The comparison naturally leads back to Queen Elizabeth II, whose wartime service became one of the defining experiences of her early life. Long before ascending the throne, Queen Elizabeth II insisted on contributing during wartime by learning practical mechanical and driving skills. That decision strengthened public respect for the future queen and demonstrated that service could extend beyond ceremony. Many observers now wonder whether Lady Louise Windsor could create a similarly meaningful example for a new generation. There have also been suggestions that further military education could lie ahead. One possibility, frequently discussed, is advanced officer training after university. Should that happen, Lady Louise Windsor would build credentials based not upon family connections, but upon personal achievement. That distinction matters. Anyone can inherit a title. Very few can earn genuine respect through discipline, commitment, and hard work. For many royal observers, that is exactly what makes Lady Louise Windsor different. Rather than allowing birthright to define her identity, she appears determined to establish her own reputation first. Ironically, that independent approach may ultimately make her even more valuable to the institution she has never actively tried to join. Because if the day ever comes that Lady Louise Windsor accepts greater royal responsibilities, she would do so with experience already earned through education, training, and personal accomplishment, not simply through inheritance. And while military training attracted growing public attention, university life was quietly preparing Lady Louise Windsor in other important ways as well. Those experiences would shape the next chapter of her journey and perhaps influence one of the biggest decisions she has ever faced. As discussions about the future of the monarchy continued, Lady Louise Windsor remained focused on something far more ordinary than most people expected: university life. Unlike previous generations of young royals whose every move attracted headlines, Lady Louise Windsor managed to experience student life with remarkable privacy. Enrolled in an English literature degree, she spent her time attending lectures, completing assignments, and participating in activities that thousands of students enjoy every year. Friends and classmates have often described Lady Louise Windsor as approachable, polite, and easy to talk to. Instead of surrounding herself with royal ceremony, she blended naturally into campus life. That alone was unusual. Many people assumed a royal granddaughter would constantly travel with obvious security or receive special treatment. Instead, those around Lady Louise Windsor often saw someone determined to be judged on personality rather than status. Beyond academics, Lady Louise Windsor also explored creative interests. She became involved in university theater productions, enjoying opportunities that allowed her to work closely with fellow students outside the classroom. Those experiences reflected another pattern that had followed her since childhood. Whenever possible, Lady Louise Windsor seemed to choose participation over privilege. She preferred earning experiences rather than simply inheriting them. Like many university students, reports occasionally linked Lady Louise Windsor with fellow classmates. One name attracted media attention for a short period, but neither individual publicly confirmed speculation. Instead of fueling rumors, Lady Louise Windsor continued focusing on her education and personal development. That quiet approach has become one of her defining characteristics. In an era where even the smallest royal stories can dominate headlines for weeks, Lady Louise Windsor has consistently avoided unnecessary attention. For many royal followers, that restraint has only increased public respect. The closer graduation approached, however, the more one important question returned. What would happen next? Would Lady Louise Windsor continue building an entirely independent career? Would military service become her full-time profession? Or would circumstances eventually lead her towards official royal responsibilities? No one outside the family truly knows. Even today, there has been no indication that Lady Louise Windsor feels pressured to make an immediate decision. Yet circumstances surrounding the monarchy continue to evolve. As King Charles III faces increasing responsibilities during a challenging period, dependable members of the royal family have become more valuable than ever before. Among them, Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, have quietly expanded their public workload year after year. Without seeking attention, they have become trusted representatives of the crown. Observers often describe them as reliable, hardworking, and refreshingly free from controversy. Their example naturally raises another question. Could Lady Louise Windsor eventually follow the same path? If that happens, the issue of titles will almost certainly return. For years, people have debated whether Lady Louise Windsor should formally begin using the princess title that has legally belonged to her since birth. Some believe doing so would simply acknowledge an existing constitutional reality. Others argue that avoiding the title reflects the modern values that Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, worked so hard to encourage throughout her childhood. Both viewpoints have understandable arguments. Supporters of the title point out that if Lady Louise Windsor accepts official duties, a princess carrying out royal engagements would provide immediate recognition around the world. Titles naturally bring visibility and authority that could strengthen the monarchy at a time when experienced working royals are in short supply. On the other hand, many admire the example Lady Louise Windsor has already set. Without relying on royal styling, she has earned admiration through education, discipline, charity appearances, equestrian achievements, and military training. Her reputation exists because of actions rather than formal rank. Perhaps that is exactly what makes her story different. Most royal biographies begin with inherited privilege. The story of Lady Louise Windsor focuses far more on personal choice. Choice has shaped every stage of her life. Her parents chose a quieter upbringing. She chose ordinary educational experiences. She chose employment during her teenage years. She chose competitive carriage driving. She chose university. She chose military training. Each decision moved her slightly further from traditional expectations while simultaneously earning greater public respect. Ironically, those independent choices may have prepared her better for royal service than a lifetime spent inside palace walls ever could. Experience creates confidence. Responsibility creates maturity. Both qualities appear repeatedly throughout Lady Louise Windsor's journey. Royal historians have also noted that titles within the monarchy are not necessarily permanent or fixed forever. They can evolve as circumstances change. The royal family has adjusted styles and responsibilities many times throughout history. When Prince Edward eventually received the title connected with Edinburgh, it demonstrated that royal positions can change over time as new responsibilities emerge. That historical flexibility means nothing prevents future adjustments if circumstances require them. Should Lady Louise Windsor one day accept larger public duties, a quiet transition to a different royal style would not be unprecedented. It could happen gradually, without major announcements, without elaborate ceremonies, simply as another step in an evolving role. Of course, the opposite outcome is equally possible. Lady Louise Windsor may decide that an independent professional career better reflects the values with which she was raised. Military service, law, diplomacy, education, or another profession could become her life's primary focus. That decision would not diminish her importance. Instead, it would reinforce the modern idea that members of the royal family can contribute to society in different ways, rather than following identical paths. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of this entire story. For more than 2 decades, a title has quietly existed in the background. It has never disappeared. It has never been revoked. It has simply remained unused. Yet despite endless public conversations about whether Lady Louise Windsor should become a princess, the title itself may not be the most important part of her story. Character has always mattered more than status. Respect has been earned through actions rather than inherited through tradition. Whether representing the crown in the future, serving through military duty, or pursuing an entirely independent profession, Lady Louise Windsor has already demonstrated something increasingly rare within modern public life: patience, discipline, humility. Those qualities cannot be granted by royal decree. They cannot be inherited through constitutional rules. They must be developed through experience. And perhaps that is why so many people believe Lady Louise Windsor could eventually play an important role in the future of the monarchy, not because of the title waiting since birth, but because of everything accomplished while that title remained quietly in the background. Only time will reveal which path Lady Louise Windsor ultimately chooses. For now, one thing is already clear. Whether history remembers her as Lady Louise Windsor, Princess Louise, a military officer, or an independent professional, her legacy will almost certainly be defined not by what she was born entitled to, but by the choices she made when she had every opportunity to choose differently.